I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, where members and elders of the local Indigenous community have been custodians for many centuries, and pay my respect to elders both past, present, and emerging. I acknowledge their living culture and their way of life in this region. I'd also like to acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us tonight. Thank you all for joining us for this evening to celebrate Refugee Week, to enjoy some nights tune and dance the night away. I was hoping we'll be standing, but looks like we'll be sitting. So maybe feel free to maybe wiggle your toe and, and just enjoy. But I also want us to reflect, to remember there are millions of refugees who escape from war-torn countries and are seeking to be resettled in countries that can provide them with safety, food, stability. At the end of 2020, there were 82.4 million people forcibly displaced as refugees, seeking refugee status, displaced inside the borders of their own country. More than two-thirds of these refugees and displaced people come from just 5 countries. Those are Syria, Venezuela, South Sudan, Afghanistan, and Myanmar. Refugee Week is Australia's annual activity to raise awareness about the challenges faced by refugees and to celebrate the positive contribution that refugees bring to their host countries. Originally celebrated in 1986, Refugee Week coincides with World Refugee Day, which is on the 20th of June. I stand here as someone who has experienced conflict, displacement, and loss. Over the years, I have embraced my new home country, which is Australia. And despite the difficulties of having to start all over again as a young person, having to learn new language, make new friends, leaving my family behind, and often also feeling that I'm often met with hostility and at times feeling that I'm not welcome here. So it's my hope that this year's theme, which is unity, will inspire all of us, that we'll all be more, willing to embrace people from different countries. And also I would encourage all of us here tonight to take active roles in supporting people from refugees' background. Not just by attending events like this, which is fine and is really great, but also by taking time to learn about refugees and to know that their experiences still impacts them today. But that's enough from me, as it is now my privilege to introduce our Mayor, Councillor Brian Little. Welcome.
I think Lizzie's said, that was a very moving speech, Lizzie, and thank you very much. That's obviously from the heart. In the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, and I pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. I think Lizzie really summed it up for us, and this is Refugee Week. It is a time to acknowledge that refugees are not only an important part of our community, they actually pay a terrific contribution to our community. And it's a time to raise an awareness, as Lizzie said, being aware that refugees are everywhere. They're part of our society. Between the end of the Second World War and the early 1990s, we accepted about 500,000 refugees into Australia. And since then, we've been accepting between 12 and 14,000 people, refugees in every single year. So, there's a lot of refugees here. And as Lizzie said, they've given up almost everything. They've given up their land. They've given up probably their profession. They may have lost their family ties. They probably arrived in Australia with next to nothing. So to be aware of these people and to give them our love, to look after them, to respect them, and to acknowledge that they're actually making a contribution to Australia. I mean, Australia is a terrific multicultural society. In Monash, around 50% of our population come from overseas. They were born somewhere else. In slightly more than 50% of the homes in Monash, a language other than English is spoken. And it's what they bring to our society. Their food, their dance, their music. I mean, you know, what we're looking forward to tonight with some music, some folk music, basically, played in the modern idiom from the Balkan regions. And they're fantastic contributions. So thank you, Lizzie, for your speech. That was terrific. And let's get on with it.
Thank you, Mayor, for your insights and perspectives on this matter. It is now my privilege, as we're here to listen to the band, not me talk. So I will now introduce Saray Iluminado to perform. Hope you enjoy the night.
Thank you everyone for being here. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this event. While the musicians are tuning, I don't know why I say I'm a musician too, while the instrumentalists are tuning, I'll just tell you a little bit about the repertoire that we play. So we specialise in two genres, Sevdah, which is traditional music from Bosnia and Herzegovina, my country of origin, and also Sephardic Jewish music. Music of the exiled Iberian Jews that was taken then to the Balkans, to the Middle East, to the northern tip of Africa, and, you know, many places. The Sephardic diaspora is really big now. And we kind of wanted to really explore these two types of music because they're very close relatives melodically and harmonically, and also in the instruments that they use. And also, they're the genres that I really grew up with and really loved running around, you know, my grandmother's house, singing along to this and jumping over furniture. And little did I know that I would be performing at Refugee Week events when I was knocking over vases and things that I wasn't supposed to knock over. So this is a piece of Sevdah that we're going to start with, and Sevdah has many different sort of subcategories. It can be historic, it can be comedic, it can be romantic. And this is a piece of historic Sevdah. It narrates of Mehmed Pasha Sokolu, the third vizier of the Ottoman Empire. Really influential guy. He was taken as a small child as a part of the Turkish janissary system, taken away from his Christian parents and taken to today's Istanbul. He was highly educated and responsible for many things, including the famous bridge on the Drina River between Bosnia and Serbia. And this bridge and its symbolism in terms of uniting people has been a really, really important topic in the former Yugoslav history and the history of the Balkans. And also the Nobel Prize-winning writer Ivo Andrić penned down the famous book, The Bridge on the Drina, that takes you through several centuries of the Ottoman Empire and reveals all the fortunes and misfortunes that happened along the bridge for a couple of centuries there. Mehmed Pasha tri cara služio, zaslužio 9 kula blaga, pa je sjeo misli razmišljati kud će toliko, blagodjevati kud će toliko, blagodjevati haj.
blago sirotinji djevati, il će blago popiti u vinu, il će blago bacit smo niz drinu, haj, haj, il će pravit po Bosni, hajre. Da se Bosna u pjesmama spominje, da se Bosna po pjesmama spominje. Aman, aman, Jaša, Jaša, Mehmed Paša. Aman, aman, Jaša, Jaša, Mehmed Paša. Paša, tri cara dvorio, izdvorio 9 kula blaga, a je sjeo misli razmišljati kud će tolko blago djevati, kud će tolko blago djevati, haj, haj. Će blago sirotinji djevati, bit će blago popiti u vinu, jer je vino car zla svakojaka, haj, haj, već će pravit po Bosni, ajre. Najprije na Drini Ćupriju. Aman, aman, Jaša, Jaša, Mehmed Paša. 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 I sagradi na Drini Ćupriju. Thank you. So we'll move to something more romantic. It was a pretty big call to start historically, so we'll just go romantic now. This is a piece played by Saray Iluminado Farms, so we sort of have also a female subgroup that often performs at women's events, and Ernie still attends them. As does Dan, our double bassist, who isn't here with us tonight. This is a beautiful song about that sort of time when you first fall for someone and you'd do anything for them, and you'd brew them coffee at midnight just to see them. My dad used to court my mum with this song.
dušo za tebe. Ja ću doći oko pola noći da sjednem kraj tebe. Ja ću doći oko pola noći da sjednem kraj tebe. Dušek mi dragi razmjesti, baš kao da je draga dušo za tebe. Ja ću doći oko pola noći da legnem kraj tebe. Ja ću doći oko pola noći da legnem kraj tebe. Ne dolazi dragi, ne treba, jer ti drugu dragu sada miluješ. Aj, ti si rekao da si volju dragu steko od mene. Aj, ti si rekao da si volju dragu steko od mene. Thank you. Ernie and Irene, do you want to say something about La Sirena? This is going to be our first Sephardic piece.
So Sephardic music, Sephardic Jews originally came from Spain in about 1492 when all the Jews and other people, Muslims, Gypsies, were told to leave by the King and Queen of Spain. So they went to various parts of the world and some of them ended up in Bosnia. And so we're going to play a piece from this area about a mermaid, is that right?
Yeah. At the bottom of the sea there's a castle, and in the castle there's a tower, and at the highest point of the tower there's a window, and there you see her, the sea daughter that all the sailors love and want to be with, but what they don't know is just how dangerous that desire might be.
Los barquitos de canela yo me marcharía entera por salvar de tu bandera. Yo me marcharía entera por salvar de tu bandera. Si la mar era de leche, yo me haré un pescador, pescaré a mis dolores con palabras de amor. Pescaré a mis dolores con palabras de amor. marinero sama. Da mi mano la palomba para subir a tu nido. Maldichar que duerme sola. Vengo a dormir contigo. Maldichar que duerme sola. Vengo a dormir contigo.
Thank you. So the one thing that the Sephardic music that we play and Sevdah music share is, so the Sephardic songs that we play are often called secular songs or romances. So they were shared amongst the women in the family, whereas the liturgical repertoire, the repertoire that was left for the synagogue was shared exclusively amongst men. So like Sevdah Linkas initially, they were performed at home. So one of the frequently recurring topics is, of course, mothers and daughters and dating advice, which generally doesn't go well. For any daughter that has ever discussed dating with their mother or not discussed, it just came up. I don't have many daughters of my background that willingly discussed very often. It just sort of happened. And it often didn't work, as it doesn't in this story that we're about to play. So this is a mother of an only child. It is told from the daughter's perspective, and of course the mother wants her to marry someone educated and someone really stable, the doctor-lawyer type, in this case the judge of the town. And the daughter says, no, I have my eye on the unemployed philosopher who excels at some other things that I really like, that we won't talk about.
Bill, 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 bull, 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 bull. 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 Ai panedaie saliva in scotta di
Okay, so we're going to play a Sephardic song. So, Lernie, did you want to talk about the language at all of the Sephardim?
Yeah, that's a good point, Nella. The language of the Sephardic Jews is called Ladino. Does anyone here speak Ladino? I'd be very surprised if anyone said yes.
Because there are 7 people in Melbourne. None of them are related to me. I mean, 7 1/4 with me, but...
Yeah. So it's what's called a dying language. We played for the Bosnian embassy in Canberra 5 years ago.
Something like that.
And it was to mark the fact that the Bosnian government had actually opened a course teaching this language, Ladino, this dying language, in Sarajevo, because the Jews had been so important for centuries, and even though the language was dying out and the Jews were leaving, they hoped that this might be a way of preserving a lost heritage in a way.
So this song, it's Ladino title, and any Spanish speakers in the audience will understand because it's 90% based on Castilian Spanish from the Middle Ages, is Por la tu puerta yo pasé, I passed by your door. But it also has a subtitle in Turkish, Gül Pembe, the little rose. So the most widely spoken dialect of Ladino is the Turkish Ladino, because that was the largest group of diasporic Sephardic Jews, then followed by the Greek Jews, and then the Jews of former Yugoslavia, including Bosnia and Bulgaria. So it's another sort of wild romantic number that says, I pass by your door, you're so beautiful, I'm almost tempted to, kiss the heavy door of your house, imagining that it was your cheek. And I mean, where could you possibly go from there?
Yo pasé, te vi dejar sentada, la llave dura yo besé, como besarlas tus caras, aman aman gül pembe, uyuz elik sende. te niegues que te besé, te tengo y abrazado, como el ducado de Sarab, te tengo la enado, aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende. Aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende. Ojos pretos tienes tú, por lo abismo muero. Cuando veo los vedrolis, como pollo y me entero. Aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende. Aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende. Aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende. Aman aman gül pembe, gül pembe, ne bu güzellik sende.
So, is anyone Bosnian or Herzegovinian in the audience? Not that I can really see the audience, so tell me if you are. Don't wave at me because it's futile.
Take off your mask if you're Bosnian.
Nice.
So this is from Herzegovina, the southern tip of the country. People might know, often there's this interesting, there's the continental Sarajevo with a mountain where the '84 Olympics were. And then there is Mostar, but it's scorching summers and, a bit like almost like being in Greece. Everything's white and blue. And everyone gets really temperamental because it's really hot. And as does this 16-year-old beauty in this song, Hayria. She falls mysteriously ill, and because she's so gorgeous and so carefree, she's sort of the crush of town, whatever the 15th century version of a crush was. Maybe there was a word for that. And everyone gathers under her balcony to find out what's going on. And of course, the three young suitors are right under the balcony in the front row, offering, whatever she needs, offering to go and get the hakim, the traditional doctor, offering riches, offering quince, because that's something we cook and eat a lot. And it's almost meant to have like magical properties. And she says, I don't want any of that. I want one of you to climb up this balcony and maybe even disrobe a little bit, and let's see what happens then. That might help me. this a family-friendly show? I hope that was metaphoric enough.
Razbolje se lijepa, hajrija, lijepa, hajrija. Podorahom, podorahom i pod jorgovanom, džanu maman, oh maman. Nju oblazi cijeli mosta redom, a najviše tri dilbera mlada, džanu maman, oh aman.
we're going to play one more Sevdah song. This is a genre, a subcategory I didn't mention before. It's called Kara Sevdah, or Black Sevdah. So in the Middle Ages, the territories of the Balkans shared the traditional medicine, that can be sort of taken back to its origins are Greek and Turkish. And one of the things that they say in our traditional medicine, that when you're lovesick, your bile changes color. A lot of your organs darken. So Arabic speakers will know Sevdah is also connected to Sauda. So when your organs darken, you're suffering. Love ache, nostalgia, melancholy, anger, that which cannot be said but also can't remain silent. So you write Sevdah at that time. And this is a song that talks about a young woman. It's sort of described in high metaphors. She's talking to this whispering brook, looking for her loved one, who's probably from the beginning of the poem already is not coming back. But as she talks to the brook and as she cries, the water rises. And there's like a beautiful philosophical thing that says, as the water rises and she sees herself more clearly, it's almost as if crying gives her her soul back. And in the body of water, she sees him and sees his death and goes through this transformative process of sadness but also dignified acceptance.
Thank you. We'll do another Ladino song, which is my favourite Ladino song because it's about nightingales. Does anyone have nightingales at home? Apparently they were very popular in cages. And however, this is a symbolic reference to nightingales and love and romance, which you keep hearing Nella talk about, and maybe you can talk about it a bit more.
I was actually going to say, because we're sort of in the final couple numbers, I might hand over to Kelly to introduce the instrument that she's playing that is featuring in this music quite heavily.
Yes, this is the ney. This is the Turkish ney. It's just it's a very old flute made out of a plant, a reed plant that grows by the river, and it was a shepherd's flute, and there's variations of it in so many places, but in Turkey, where this one is from, it's it has a long-standing relationship with Sufism, and the symbology in this song, the nightingales and the roses, also are tied in to that theme.
Do you want to introduce your lutes? As you see, we don't have a guitarist. We have something
way cooler.
I'm
not allowed to play guitar in
No,
this
she's
band.
not.
So, but this is these are lauta. So one's called a Cretan lute. So in Crete they play these almost like bass mandolins. It's re-entrant tuning. That's the lowest string on it. And that's also the same, re-entrant tuning, so that the lowest note isn't actually the lowest string isn't the lowest note. And that's a mainland lauta, which they play on the mainland of Greece. And they also play them in Albania as well. But this one's very specifically Cretan and Carpathos, those islands in that particular neck of the woods of the Aegean. They play these really big ones. And so that's the story of my lutes. And I got them both from the same maker in Athens when I was there, when I was able to travel a few years ago. So it's the story of my lauta.
Take us away, fiddler.
I think it's over to you.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, this is a violin. Violin everywhere. It's the best instrument. And there are variations all around the world, of course, but this is a mandolin, which is like a violin, same strings, but pluck it, not bow it. This other strange thing I only played once. I call it an octave violin because it has special strings to make it very low, which suits Nella's voice beautifully. There you go.
No, please.
Los Bilbilicos. Los Bilbilicos, the nightingales. So, here we go.
cantan con suspiros de amor. Mi neshama y mi ventura está en tu poder. Mi neshama y mi ventura está en tu poder.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to the organisers. It was wonderful to be here. This is our last piece. And since it is, I'd love to introduce the musicians. On Cretan and Continental lute, Irini Vela. Ernie Gruner on mandolin violin. Kelly Dowland, ney, flute, clarinet and daira. This is Mi Corazon.
And this is me, Nella.
I'm Nella. This song is called Mi Corazon.
Nella Trifkovic, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sure many people have understood My Heart, a much-loved Sephardic song about, courting one on the balcony, the other on the ground. How can you reach them? Probably best by song. So we would love to say thank you from our heart with a loved romance from the heart, the tireless heart that will always serenade you.
Mi corazón, debajo de tu ventana, lleno, 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 lleno de dolor, envuelto en la flama. Ya no me cansino, no, no, de tanto, tanto soñar guitarra. Ya no me cansino, no, no, la linda cara. Mi corazón debajo de tu ventana, lleno, 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 lleno de dolor, envuelto en la flama. Ya no me cansino, no, 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 de tanto, tanto soñar guitarra. Ya no me alcancino, no, no, la linda cara. Ya no me cansino, no, no, de tanto, tanto soñar guitarra. Ya no me alcancino, no, no, la linda cara, la linda cara, la linda Thank you very much. Thank you to the city of Monash. Thank you to everyone that's worked with us today.
Come here, the girl. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Lizzie Kuth, City of Monash Community Ambassador. I am here with Saray Iluminado Band to celebrate Refugee Week. How was the band formed and what was the main reason?
Well, about 7 years ago or 8 years ago, I was asked to play music for a theatre piece at La Mama to do with Sarajevo. And the director said, there's someone that we should meet, someone you should meet to help with the music and the choice of the music. So that's how I met Nella Trifkovic. And we met at the director's house, or her house actually, your former house, with a bottle of Slivovitz, I think it was. And after a while, or at some stage, Nella said, when I finished my PhD, I think we should get a band together. So that's how it started.
And I'm also curious to know who came up with the name. It's pretty interesting.
So I named a couple of events that we were playing when we were nameless, I think. Saray Iluminado. I was just experimenting with the words. So Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, obviously the name references it because we play Bosnian music. And Saray can mean two things. It means a palace, but also it means an almond shape. Like there are particular plates, almond-shaped plates called Saray Ovasi. And so I wanted to name it something to do with that. And Saray Iluminado, which means the illuminated palace, is a nickname of a famous fountain in the center of the city. And this is where a lot of poets and musicians gather and they exchange their work for free for people in like on hot summer nights. So I wanted to kind of reference a place where jams occur and cultural exchanges occur.
Wow, that's very creative. And also just on that, what influences your music, song lyrics, and do you all contribute in composing your songs?
Do you want to speak to this a bit?
What influences our music? Well, the primary influence is the repertoire that Nella brings to the band, which is Bosnian music and Sevdah music, which is a particular form of Bosnian music, and really compelling, beautiful tradition. And also we do Sephardic music as well, which is music that is in origin from the Jews of Spain that migrated to the Balkans and the Near East many centuries ago. And so they're the big influences, and Nella allows us as members of the band to bring our own traditions and interpretations to the music. So my background, I've got an Albanian, Turkish, Greek background, and I bring, some Cretan and some Greek influences and Albanian influences in my playing into the band. So we all have a kind of a say in how we flavour the music.
And I understand that the band combines music with storytelling to tell stories of loss and hope as part of Refugee experience. What inspires you to incorporate this into your performance?
So both genres that we play, Sevdah and Sephardic music, they explore the sort of those quintessential human themes: love, loss, longing, hope, betrayal. Exile is a really big theme. Search for a homeland, geographically or philosophically and psychologically, is another big theme. So we tried to shed light on the themes, on, as Irini said, on where this music comes from and where we make it come from in terms of how it comes from us. Like maybe Kelly will speak to like some of the less known instruments, like Kelly introduces her instruments that are often not known.
Sure. Well, we all play a few instruments in this band, and the instrument that maybe Nella was referring to that I play is the ney. I play the Turkish ney, which is a flute made of reed. And yeah, it's a very famous instrument, perhaps in the Middle East, but not so well known in the Western world.
Yeah, I personally really do enjoy that instrument. I've come from Egypt and I listen to a lot of Turkish music, and it's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, just finally, how do you want people to feel after seeing your show or hearing your music?
The microphone just ended up with me, didn't it? Well, one of the things that I often say, and I still kind of say to my parents, is they can't believe that I have this band that plays this little-known music in these little-known, little-spoken languages. I want people, particularly people of diasporas, to walk away knowing that they can share what they have, even if it's not familiar sounding, familiar looking, or English speaking, and that there is a cultural exchange possible, and that the themes that we deal with are actually very universal.
Amazing. Any final words before we wrap up?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.